3 years ago this week, the Mayan apocalypse was just 10 days away, roughly. December 21st, 2012, we were told, was going to be the date of the Mayan apocalypse and the destruction of the world. Countless apocalypses that we've dealt with on this program. Just in case you didn't know, none of them ultimately happened. One classic instance was our interview with Allison Warden, and I encourage you to check that out. She was convinced and ready for the rapture, Lewis, and it never happened. We tried to get her back on the show numerous times just to say, hey, what happened with that whole rapture thing? We never heard back from her, and either she raptured herself, which would be horribly sad, or she just wanted to save face and say, I'm not going to show up and even try to explain why the rapture didn't happen.
Yeah, she tried to convince the world that the world was about to end. Imagine if she were successful, the havoc she would have created. She told her family that the world was about to end. They presumably believed her, and
or at least believed that she believed it.
Yeah, Dave, just is a fool, and I would not show my face if I made a mistake like that.
I've been sort of researching a little bit past calls or predictions of apocalypses, and there was one in the year 365. Hilary of Poitiers announced that the end would happen that year 365, and that didn't happen. And then in year 500, Hippolytus of Rome and Sextus Julius Africanus and Irenaeus all predicted that Jesus would return in the year 500. That didn't happen. And then, for example, in 1805, Christopher Love, the Presbyterian minister, predicted that the destruction of the world by an earthquake would happen in 1805, followed by an age of everlasting peace when God would be known by all. And none of that happened either. But we have more apocalypse predictions coming up. Gene Dixon, who died in 1997, was one of the best-known Americans who were self-proclaimed psychics and astrologers during the 20th century. And due to her syndicated newspaper astrology column, she had some of the best publicized predictions. And she says that American Armageddon will take place in 2020 and that Jesus will return to defeat the unholy trinity of the Antichrist, Satan, and the false prophet sometime between 2020 and 2037. So lots to look forward to. Although Dixon has not been that accurate in her past predictions, she predicted the world would end on February 4th of 1962, and that did not happen. But maybe, Lewis, in 2020.
Let me get this straight. She's giving us a 17-year window starting in 2020?
That's right.
Okay. My advice to people is that if you are going to listen to someone who is telling you about doomsday, make sure it's a scientist,
right,
and that their claim is based on scientific evidence, because if anyone knows when something like that is going to happen, it'll be a scientist, and it'll have nothing to do with Jesus.
Well, in 2060, supposedly, according to Sir Isaac Newton's research of the Bible, Jesus will rapture his church one jubilee from the time of Israel reacquiring Jerusalem. That's slated for 2060. That's according to Sir Isaac Newton, but it is based on his interpretation of the Bible.
Right. It's pretty much meaningless. But, but I guess good to hear from a scientist about the Bible for a change, right? If anything.
Yeah, I guess so. And this is just two examples. The raptures are heavily predicted. There will ultimately be a sort of rapture, right? I mean, the sun is eventually going to burn itself out, and no longer will it be able to sustain life on Earth, although it's happening so long from now that it's conceivable that by then humans would have figured out a way to keep living on Earth even without the sun's power, although the sun is going to expand in size so much that it will ultimately engulf planet Earth. So by then, Lewis, I think we have to be living elsewhere.
I think so, yeah. So that's what these religious zealots should do. Their predictions have just been off by 1 billion years or so, maybe 800 million. At least start 500 million years out.
A 17-year window doesn't seem like that much of a cop-out in the context of 1 billion years, right? If you could predict, I mean, you laughed at the 17-year window by Ms. Dixon, but if we could get a 17-year window from scientists about the burnout of the sun, that would be an impressive window.
Whoa, Dave, you're not going to believe this. God just talked to me. He told me that the end is going to happen sometime between tomorrow and 200 billion years from tomorrow.
See, now that's a prediction I can get behind.
I like it. God's with me on this one.
Next, speaking of God being with you, we will go back to one of our classic interviews with a man named Jonathan Phelps. I'll remind you who he is after the break.